Alright, heading in to shoot my 22 Henry lever action 22 Magnum first time, and my Ruger 22 takedown, and probably my 9mm pistol. Spray and pray. Gotta love FLA. All right, first time shooting the Henry repeater, the lever action. I don't think it was a repeater. I don't know. But that worked beautifully. Nice 22 mag. Just fun to do. You know, that was kind of a you know, not definitely the most efficient or anything rifle, but just kind of a classic John Wayne. Had fun to have. A plinker, but 22, so you can, if you're at the point where you get needing game, you're game. And then I got my Ruger takedown, just regular long rifle 22, and I was having problems feeding out of the magazine. The bullets were catching, and I kept having to they were jamming, I guess, but it was ugly. They were like, it sucked. And thankfully there was one of those hardcore dudes there, little guy, but so very friendly. And I was just like, because when it got stuck at first, I couldn't get it out. And with all the dealing with bullets, I'm like, I don't want to stick like something sharp in there to pick it out, you know, like a little screwdriver. But he breaks his knife out. You just see somebody who's into it doing it, and you know. But look at the tip of that. It's all chewed up. You know, it would shoot, and then the next one would get stuck on the way up and almost be like bent. Yeah, here's a good one. Look at this. You know, so it was going up, and that'd be going into the barrel, the muzzle, and it was. And then, you know, it's brand new, so I kept, and we tried another magazine that the store had, and then it got a little bit better, but it was still doing it. Every time I'd put like 5 or 6 bullets in, and then I just releasing the bolts right away. That I would often have to kind of redo that, and then it would even maybe after the first one, but then it would fire 4 or 5 in a row, no problem, and then it would be an issue again. So when I reloaded, but it would shoot like the last 4 or 5, no problem. But I had trouble with every loading at the beginning. So we'll see what we can do there. All right, figured I'd take you through the cleaning after I got home. This is my Henry lever, the big lever. It's slightly bigger. The standard is more straight there. And the golden boy, actually all this would be gold, and I saved like 50 bucks because I didn't want that. When I'm up on the hill, I don't want anything shining. 22. But that's what I figured, you know, if you had to defend yourself with this, or like you found somebody breaking into your house and you had this, I'd rather put like 12 holes in them and not kill them. That there is humor in that, folks, if you're not a douchebag. So what you do, you got this little cleaner. This is, I got this on the way to Disney the other day. I stopped, just kind of popped into my head. Lead Feather is the name of the place. They got their own brand, kind of. Or is it Lead Feather? I maybe would have gone with the Led Zeppelin style lead. But then in this day, people will be like, LED feather? So I just got back, and I know it's empty, but you still, you know, the safety's on. And you open up, and this is what one thing I don't like about this is you can't just do a good bore cleaning. Like, I actually had trouble. I had to clean it before I shot it the first time, and getting something to go in there, because the standard one would have, it'd be plastic, and then it would have a little loop on the end of this to you put a little, you know, these little standard tissues they sell to do the cleaning of that, and I was unable to get it. Was too long to get it into the muzzle, and eventually it did break before I could ever do it. So it took me, like, you know, it wasn't the focus of my life, so it took me a while to finally get a good one. So you just drop that in there. Actually, put some of this in there first. But what I don't like is the white little things, like my purse. I don't know where I got this, but it's perfect for this. It's kind of like a Daniel Boone purse. I had it. I don't know if it was my sister's, my mother's, but I came across it at some point, and I was like, that's a satchel. You know, just nice white standard little 1 inch by 1 inch. But you can see on there, you know, like basically what they tell you to do is keep pulling that through till it's clean. Whereas this thing, while it's nice and tight, there's actually right here, there's brass in that little section with bristles sticking out, you know, and then it gets all fat down this end. Like, you would think maybe you could tie something in there, but you don't want it to get stuck in there. And now there is a way, obviously, to take the bolt out here so you can go straight in. But that's more extensive, and you got to do that occasionally, but you don't really need to do that extensive cleaning every time. So I'm just going to spray this in here. And basically where the bullet goes in, there's just like a muzzle there. And I just can't see shit anymore. You dump some of that in there. Probably already ran out. I don't know how much. It was funny because when I was loading the bullets there at the range, my first time using it, you put them in here, but I was holding it like this, and there, you can see there's a little slot there. So I'd put a bullet in and it would fall. Just had to turn it upside down. But this is what they call, I believe, I'm kind of new to the whole thing in the lingo, but a plinker. You know, like you go out around your campsite, you know, out west, where you can do that sort of thing and shoot cans and stuff. And lizard, you know, if you got any environment issues or something, you know. But it's like I said, you can put several holes in somebody and just for fun, and kind of like, don't come around here anymore. You don't have to worry about the messy problem of a murder. I'm sure there's a point where it would turn into that, or depending on where you hit. But I'm not into that, man. Not until the big thing, not until the Civil War happens anyways. Hope I don't ever find me there, you know, like having to, or wanting to do that. And I'm listening to the just sent away for this. I just made a video about the unboxing of this, which I'll put up first. And I'll say right now, refer to that video. David Kavika Kahiapo. He's an associate, you know, Jack Johnson, I believe, took slack key guitar lessons from him. The song Constellations by Jack Johnson. One of my favorite Jack Johnson songs, you know. It was just another day with the sunrise and the moon. You know, really good tune. In fact, it's a song that the dude, the lead singer from Pearl Jam, and I'm not a fan, so I'm not going to say his name, but he always plays that with Jack when he plays with him. Yeah, just not a fan of that dude, man. He just, I don't even want to go into it. Nothing major, just, you know, not missing anything by having a bit of an attitude about his existence. That's it. You just go back and forth, you know, not back and forth. You want to go from the bolt to the down the muzzle as the bullet would fly, you know. You don't want to be going against. Although, and I got to learn how to do this stuff like they do when you put the bristles in there and clean it. They do just say that go back and forth. So I got to be a little more. Before I do that, I want to make sure a little more, and that's it. Just a basic after shooting cleaning. See, now if you had the white little thing, you'd be able to see, you know, less and less each time, and I can't really do that now. See, now this is, now I can take that off. Now this is tricky for the, you know, for the safety on this, there's no button. You have to put your finger gently on the trigger and pull that back. And I didn't do it. Now I gotta read. You don't want to dry fire it too often. See, now it's you got to get the touch, but it's one of those things. I think once you get it, if you do it enough, often enough, you don't lose it. So now I'm pulling on the trigger, not moving. Safety's on, and that's it. This was a joy to shoot. This was fun. You know, you take a shot, you crank that down, the bullet goes flying out. Just that was fun, and it worked. It worked. Now I'm gonna clean this other one here. So that's a 22 Magnum. So that's got a bit of a, you know, just at the, that's probably like, and I don't know a ton about the guns, but and all the differences, but that was just about like the slightest sort of like jerking action. Now I also shot my 9mm Sig Sauer, the P365. And I got the extended handle. That was significantly more of a kickback than both of these. You know, that was, I hadn't shot that in a while, so I just unloaded one magazine. Where did I put that thing? Not even high. I wouldn't be high if I had guns. But this I had trouble with. It was every time I put it in there, you know what I mean by it. But it would, and then you lock the bolt back when you're doing it. And then you unlock the bolt and you got to pull back, you know, all the way, just a little bit, and then you let it go and it wouldn't close. And I'd have to maybe do it again. Then the first bullet would shoot, and then it wouldn't. And yeah, I've already talked about this at the beginning of the video. And it would be fine after the first one. I was just putting like 5 or 6 in there, and the last 4 to 5 would shoot no problem. Oh, I didn't put this stuff again. But I'll tell you, this was a smooth firing gun. It's built for a suppressor, like you can put one of those silencers on the end, but it was already very you wouldn't need them. If you were out in like the desert or something, nobody, you know, you wouldn't have people miles away going, what was that, you know? I liked it. It was unfortunate that I had those slight issues there with that. And it's brand new. Like, I even went and got the other magazine that they had at the shop. Thankfully, like, I think I talked about most of this, but there was a guy there, one of those, you know, lifers, and I just asked him for help. When the bullets first got stuck in there, I couldn't get it out, you know, I was kind of, and I'm just not sure, like, if you can just put a little, like, a tip of your knife in there, and that's what he did. But I wouldn't do that until I knew, you know. But at the same time, now that I know, you just don't know those things. You know, that's one thing I wish my dad had just made part of our life, was guns. You know? Because once you know about them and know how to safely handle the stuff, it's it feels good to know that you know what you're doing, you know? And that, once you say, you know, if there's no finger on the trigger and you don't drop it, it ain't gonna fire. But, that being said, be conscious of where the muzzle's aiming and don't have it aiming at anything you don't want to lose. Whether it's an animal, person, plate. So it kind of promotes a good self-awareness and responsibility, you know? And you gotta, I think it's all right, you know? And look, I don't have any kids, so, but you teach responsibility. You don't ever fool around when you're doing anything with the gun, so that, you know, that's where you may be running into trouble, where you're being safe, but you're cracking jokes or something, and then your kid does that, and maybe a step gets missed because he's trying to be funny for his friends or something. You don't want to, you just want to see. Now you can see you just do this multiple times. I'll show you, hold on. We'll wrap this up. I'll complete this rest of this off camera. But I figured I'd take you all the way through. Stay still. Some residue. But you could do it with one of those rope. In fact, all right, I'll show you what they've got. Like, you got the same situation here, and you tie this on the end, and then you can loop that through there and pull it through. But you gotta, this is a bigger caliber than 22, so I can't. The 22 one broke because I was trying to do it on that the Henry there, and it required a little bit of a, you couldn't get it flatly in there before you started pulling through. It was on an angle and it broke. And then I went to several gun shops and there wasn't anything. It took me a while till I went to that Lead Feather this week to finally find one. And it was kind of annoying, because one of those situations, like I was at a couple like big places in Tampa and trying to explain, and you're talking to people and it's not a rare rifle, not a rare thing you got to do, and it was like they're kind of reacting to you like, what are you talking about? What is happening? What do you mean? And I'm just like, and I don't know enough to slice through that or to just know exactly what I want. not deal with them. I'll show you. So that's, the bolt's in locked position right now, right here. And the bullet was getting stuck in there. And that's what's nice about this. It's a takedown. So you can take that off and carry it in the case. Put it in your backpack. Go hiking. But it wasn't like, and then so you unlock this, you got to pull it back all the way, so just a little bit, and you unlock it, and then you just let it go. You don't want to guide it in. They tell you in the directions, so you don't want to do that gently. You let go, and it was stopping like right there a lot. And then I'd shoot, and then after each one, that kind of does it on its own, and it should close back up, and you can shoot again. That's a semi-automatic. It would get stuck on the second one, and I could bring it back and let it go, and it would go in. It would kick out one bullet, and then it would kind of work. And then I'd be able to shoot like 4 or 5 what was left, and I did that several times. But that was where it's at. So I'm gonna investigate a little, but I may have to go back to the shop there. Hopefully not. It's a nice rifle, man. And it's a perfect one to have at your campsite or something, out west and stuff. You can't really do anything on the East Coast unless you're at a range. Even in Florida. Unless you're deep in Central Florida. We'll see. But that's it, man. Once you just got to be smart with it. And, but the more you learn, the more you know, and you be respectful of it at all times. That's the key. There's no slacking. But I mean, I was scared. Like I said, when I first bought my first gun, it was 2 years before I even shot the thing. Because I was like, oh my God, what if the tip of my bullet rubs against the magazine when I'm loading it? And you just got to dispel all those little myths and just trust that you can be intelligent, common sense, and safe with it, man. I mean, what are you scared of? And if you're like, what do you need a gun for? If you really, really don't understand that your government doesn't want you to have a gun, and look what they can do in Europe to those people. Like in England and stuff, where basically every major city in England has an Islamic mayor. And if you for 1 second think that once there's a majority Muslim population in your country, city, that they're going to tolerate your Christianity or anything else, you're uninformed. No matter what they tell you, how they say they're not the extremist or whatever, they're lying to you. That's part of their deal. They will not tolerate you, so. And that's what, once you're disarmed, it's over. And any of you rolling your eyes, I'm not sympathetic when the time comes, man. And I'm not building a bunker, but it's better to be prepared and also just to know what to do, and peace of mind, man. It's all about peace of mind. Which brings me around to the Neil Young situation, where you go onto his website. He's got the Neil Young archives with the Times Contrarian is his little paper, and he's putting shit in there every day. So I commend him for expressing his opinions, but they're all wrong. Like, he's got this thing in there, thanks Tim Walz on Record Store Day. And then there's a little clip of Tim Walz talking about how he bought Comes a Time by Neil Young, the vinyl. And, and he's out there at the Bernie and AOC thing out in Frisco. He had his old Blackie, his Les Paul out there doing Rockin' in the Free World, leading this chant, Take America Back. That's what we're doing, dude.
And here's the problem that I have with Neil Young. He expresses his opinion. I believe he's wrong on everything, and I'm still gonna play his songs that I love. I've got to make my peace with that because they're a big part of what I love. But I fucking hate him. Now, and here's my issue with him. Since 1966, roughly, when Buffalo Springfield started, he has lived in a bubble of security and having a manager. If Neil doesn't want you around, you're not going to get to him unless you go through his manager. And anywhere he goes and he walks into a room, people are waiting to talk to him or waiting to see what he says, hoping he comes and talks to them. He's the center of attention and commands people. Just want to smell his farts, you know? So, and now we're what, 2024. That is like 60 years. Good for him for being able to maintain that and have the lifestyle where he can have that. I think all of us would be pretty cool with that. But it clearly does not leave you in a position where you have any connection to real people. And he somehow does have somewhat of a touch there. You know, he's not one of these fairies getting Botox and wearing capes and shit. But he's still, no matter how much, he does seem like a down-to-earth guy, but he is still Neil Young, and he's never in a situation where everybody around him is not looking to him. Like even when he's in these bands with Crazy Horse and stuff. You see recent videos with Ralph Molina and Billy Talbot, who have been with him since '69. They still defer to Neil on everything. And he has no problem bossing them around. It's still that relationship. So my point being, he's another one of these people like Pelosi and them. Oh sure, they're telling you the downtrodden or the others, as they like to say it. What's the marginalized groups or whatever? They're telling you what you want to hear. They're standing up for you, but they don't have to ever deal with the consequences of that like us regular people do. As in having a drug rehabilitation place next door to you, which is nice that there's a rehabilitation place, but a lot of those people don't go in there and they're not serious about it, or and it attracts us. Just those sort of things. Or having needle exchange programs in San Francisco and stuff. They don't have to deal with the consequences of that. They're living in a world of security and just going from the front door to the front door with a limo. So it's tough, man. And that I think what I'm saying there is legit. So when I speak about it, or most of you and us, we deal with what happens when these things that make you feel good in your heart. I'm a nice person. We have to deal with that. So listening to a celebrity or a fucking a politician is just, you're irrelevant, man. And it's kind of irresponsible what Neil Young does. You know, we all want to be that good person, that woman with the 2 kids who just hiked from Guatemala. Yeah, but you know how many? That's like 1 out of 10 of the people coming over. We all know it's mostly young single males. And a lot of them are good people, I agree. But you can't just come on in, man. We need to know the ones that aren't, because the 1 out of or 2 out of 10 that do have nefarious, whether they hate the United States or they're just deviant fucking people who want to assault women and shit like that, we need to stop them, man. You know, the Laken rallies, that girl who got killed by the immigrant who had been detained in New York City and let go. Those are the ones, we need to stop that. That one is more important than the 10 guys who mistakenly maybe get swept up and deported for entering our country illegally. In all these other countries, in Europe and all them, they all have borders and strict fucking rules. So yes, we're a different country here, but there's just common sense, folks. So, all right? But I think about this, and I want you to think about it. Neil, be safe, man.